Okay, so talk about this receptor arch now. Okay, sorry, the reflect arch now. So when talk about a reflect arch, definitely means they control a reflex. Now, what's mean reflex? Reflex basically means that you do not need, okay, the process, okay, the entire process do not need to involve, okay, the response here, or the coordination here, not necessary to involve our conscious regions of our brain. So when you do it out of the control of your brain. Basically, for example, if I will slap you, so before I slap you, I can see that you escape. Are you clear? Or you touch on a hot surface, immediately you remove your hands, right? So those are actually, the response here is not coordinated by your brains, okay, or the conscious regions of your brains. And this is very important because it gives us a very, very fast reflex actions, which will actually stop us or how you say that, let us actually escape from the danger. Okay, so once the reflex arch is a neural pathway that control a reflex. So most sensory neurons do not pass directly to the brain, but synapse in the spinal cord. So this allows a very fast reflex action to occur by activating spinal motor neuron without delay of the routing signal through the brain. So what will happen here is the simplest reflex arch consists of two neurons. The simplest one consists of two neurons, which are sensory neurons and also motor neurons. So means sensory neuron directly synapse with the motor neuron, we define as a monosynaptic arch, okay, reflex arch. And for example, is the Petula Reflex, okay, the kneecap there, Petula Reflex. We can look at this, and we may have involved, okay, the intermediate neuron or interneurons connect the sensory neuron and motor neuron, either one or more of them involved in this, what we call the polysynaptic reflex. Okay, polysynaptic reflex, for example, nociceptive flexion reflex. So this will actually involve when you touch on the sharp subjects, okay, or the touch, sorry, subject, where is it? Touch on the hard or sharp object. When you touch on a sharp object, what will happen here is you're going to trigger this polysynaptic reflex, which is termed as a nociceptive flexion reflex here. Now, if you look at the diagram here, okay, so you have this quadricep muscle and we have the kneecap here, okay, the kneecap. So if you look at the contractions of the hamstring muscle or relaxation of the hamstring muscle is coordinated by the motor neurons. Can you see that, the motor neurons? So quadricep muscle, okay, as well as the hamstring muscle. So the blue color here indicates the sensory neurons. Red color is the motor neurons, and the green color is the interneurons, or we term it as the intermediate neuron. So what will happen here is when we hit on the kneecap, when you hit on the kneecaps, okay, you can see that the jerking process takes place without your control. You don't ask it, right? You can see that when you hit on the kneecap, do your brain actually control? Oh, please have the jerking effects. No, right? So what happened here is when you hit on the kneecap connected to the sensory here that respond to the stretch. So what happened? It generate the action potential. It generate action potential and travel along, okay, and it's transmitted along to the central nervous system, which is the spinal cord. So in the spinal cord, what will happen here is this is a monosynaptic. Okay, can you see that? Monosynaptic reflex, where the motor neuron directly synapse with it's a motor neuron, it's a sensory neuron, sorry. Sensory neuron directly synapse with the motor neuron. So these motor neurons will cause the quadricep muscle to contract and give us the knee jerk effect. But this is a stimulation pathway. When we talk about stimulation pathway, okay, we do have, because we know that our sensory neuron can have the branches. So this branch actually, can you see that? Synapse with these intermediate neurons, and the intermediate neurons synapse with the motor neurons. Now this is inhibitory. What's inhibitory? Because when your muscle, quadricep muscle contract, hamstring muscle have to relax. So you have to inhibit the contractions here. So therefore, another action potential will be sent to the hamstring muscle, so the hamstring muscle relax, quadricep muscles contract, allow the jerking process to take place. So you can see that the entire reflex process does not involve our conscious brain regions, okay, the conscious brain region to instruct your quadricep muscle to contract, hamstring muscle to relax. Entire thing actually is a reflex. But the thing here is, if you go through this pathway only, without involving your brain, we won't be able to interpret the signal. You won't know, or you won't realize that you are hit by an object. You get what I mean here? So you will know that actually this intermediate neuron sometimes, okay, in some of the parts of the body, it's going to carry the information all the way to the brain to interpret this signal, okay, this action potential. So therefore, it's something like this. You will have a knee jerk. Can you see that? The jerking process take place. At the same time, you interpret the, oh, someone hit on my kneecap. Okay, someone hit on my kneecap. You will know. Why? Because another branch here, can you see that? Another branch will synapse with the intermediate neurons. Intermediate neuron will bring all the way to your brain. Okay, so this is a Petella reflex. How about nociceptive? Nociceptive, basically when you touch on the hot, okay, these are hot surface, or you touch on the sharp object, basically it stimulates your pain receptor. So what will happen here is, you can see that, guys, when you touch on the super duper hot surface, immediately you remove your hand and then you say, ouch. Correct or not? You won't see that, you won't have the distraction. You touch on the hot surface, and then the action potential transmits from your hand all the way to the brain, and your brain interpret, oh yeah, it's very hot, and then ask your muscle to contract. By the time it go to the brain and come back to your muscle, it's too late. Are you clear? It is too late. So therefore, when you remove the hand, by the time your hand already damaged or burned already, or injured already. Can you see that? So the process is something like this. Okay, when you touch on a hot object or hot surface, action potential sent to your spinal cord. At the spinal cord there, it's going to synapse with intermediate neuron, and intermediate synapse with the motor neuron, and ask our bicep to contract. So you remove the hand. But if without sending the information to our brain, you won't know that is a hot stimulus. Okay, clear? You won't know the stimulus. But we do know, right? We touch it and feel hot, right? Why? Because the action potential also, this action potential also is sent to our brain. So in our brain interpret it. But the removal of your hand from the hot surface is not controlled by the conscious regions of our brain. Our brain never instruct our hand to contract when you touch on the hot surface. Are you clear? So this one, I mean, the whole mechanism actually allow us to have very quick response, okay, very, very quick responses, okay, and help us to escape from the danger and avoid us from the further injury. Okay, you touch the hot surface, immediately remove. Okay, that is called reflex actions. Okay. So we'll continue with the Petula reflex here. So what will happen actually in this case? So first we started with the striking on the patella tendons with the reflex hammer just below the patella stretches. Okay, below the patella stretches the muscle spindle in the quadricep muscle, generate action potential. Okay, so we start the generate action potential. And then the action potential travel to the spinal cord along the sensory neurons, okay, along the sensory neuron. And then, okay, synapse, okay, without the interneurons. Why without the interneurons or the intermediate neurons here? Because it's a monosynaptic, okay, monosynthetic reflex. Okay, with a motor neuron at the spinal cord, so completely independent of higher center, means that not involving the brain. And then a motor neuron conduct an efferent action potential back to the quadriceps muscle and then triggering the contractions. So at the same time, a branch of the neurons stimulate the inhibitory neurons in the spinal cord there. So therefore, the contraction of the quadriceps muscle is coordinated with the relaxation of the antagonistic flexor hamstring muscle, causing the leg to kick or to have a jerking effect. Okay, and as I said that you do have another intermediate neurons to bring the action potential to our brain so that we can remember as well as to interpret, oh yeah, someone hit on my quadriceps muscle. Okay. So you can see that this is the nociceptive reflex. Okay, so basically the pain on a hot object or the sharp object here. So the pain receptor in the skin, okay, what we call this, generate the action potential. The action potential will travel all the way. Can I say all the way into the central nervous system? But we know that nociceptive flexions reflex. This reflex actually is a polysynaptic. Okay, polysynaptic. Okay, reflex. What will happen here? We need to have the intermediate neuron. So intermediate neurons will synapse with the motor neurons. So these motor neurons will carry the action potential all the way to our bicep here. So will cause our bicep to contract. So it completes the entire what we call this reflex. So is it going to the brain? Yes. So within the spinal cord, okay, the action potential may also pass on to other neurons, which take the action potential to the brain. So this happened at the same time as action potential are traveling along the motor neurons to the effector. So therefore, we can respond before any voluntary response involving the conscious regions of your brains. Okay, so very useful in this case, respond to the danger stimulus such as a touch of a very hot object on the skin. So as I say that these actions actually help us to escape from the dangerous situations. Okay,